who's on the list. Hi everyone, I'm Sandrine, this is Americ.
Hello.
Let's talk about the 100th season 4 episode 3, The Four Horsemen. We don't have any quick thoughts, so...
Let's jump right into it.
Yes. I'll admit the whole Fallout shelter story, I was like, okay. What was the point of this whole thing? Like, I expected them to find something.
I was not gonna say anything. I was like, Americ, you're being too negative. Don't say anything. Just let it go.
No, just this part. I was just like, I think for me, the only thing we got out of it is the conversation between Jaha and Bellamy about
leadership and forgiving
and forgiveness.
And redemption.
And redemption. Yeah. I feel like Jaha so far is the only one that feels like
I see where you're coming
Bellamy
from.
is like,
I feel you.
He's like, if your intentions were good, you should be fine. Which I'm like, well, it's debatable. I mean, if I think, if I have good intentions killing everyone in the world, I feel like maybe that's not okay.
Yeah, I feel like Jaha's position, when he was obviously in the Ark, in space, limited resources, you have to make tough decisions. It is not the same thing as Bellamy being on the ground, who's facing an army that's there to help them, and just making the decision that for the long-term survival of my people, I'm gonna kill these people who apparently are here to help me. That's not the same thing.
Should we really start this review with you hating on Bellamy again?
Look, here's the thing. A lot of people in the comments have been saying that I hate Bellamy. I do not hate Bellamy. However, I have a very, very strict standard that I keep, the people I like at a certain level. If Clarke had done the same thing, I would be saying the same thing. That's how I roll. I am a fair person.
But you know what? I think what I personally liked about it is, so far, I feel like Bellamy is acting more in this season like I wish he had acted in season 3. I like Bellamy again. Like, I feel like that's the Bellamy that I liked in season 1. It's the Bellamy that I liked in season 2. It's not this weird Bellamy where I'm like, where did this come from in season 3, So for me, I'm liking Bellamy because even though Jaha is like telling him all that, he still feels like, I'm still not very okay with all that. Moving on to Polis.
Yep.
So we finally hear Octavia's new name, We have one Hera and now we have Sky Ripper.
Death from above.
Death from above.
Still loving the Octavia storyline, personally, right? But I find it interesting that you still see that she hasn't gone full assassin yet. She's willing to go there, but she doesn't have the heart of an assassin just yet. Because she has her connection with Indra, and that connection was actually tested very interestingly when they encountered Indra's daughter. Who I didn't know she had a daughter. Yeah, look at that.
I think what's interesting is they're creating conflict because you have Indra who, believes in certain things. And then you have her daughter who's like keeper of the flame, who has her own faith, which is kind of in conflict with her mom's beliefs and what she thinks her daughter should be doing. And yet, she's still her daughter. And I think even Octavia goes even further because she's like, she's family.
Yeah.
And so we're going to protect her no matter what. Even going against kind of Rowan.
For sure.
Things from him.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I don't understand why. Okay, so they pretended like the flame was destroyed, but I don't understand why they give it to Gaia to keep. Like, I'm like, why would you not give it back? And then now Rowan's, power is kind of like, well, are people going to be okay with him?
No, they're not. And he literally said that he thinks that people are going to have to die.
Yeah. For me, you're putting Sky Crew in jeopardy because if it all, goes crazy, then it will affect even their ability to save everyone. If there's like a war going on.
I don't think she's thinking about it that way. I think she's like, look, if it's gonna go down, it's gonna go down. She's not afraid of it.
I guess so.
Right?
I feel like she's like,
well,
that's just
okay. Octavia hasn't been one to waffle so far, so she made a bold move and she went there. And not that I necessarily agree with her. Like I think you're right that the smart thing would have been recuperating the flame, but
You could still have pretended to just let them destroy it and then give it back to Rowan.
But I feel they just wanted to add more drama.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
And plus, I think the flame will come in handy, which I actually have a thought about that, but I'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Moving on to Murphy and Emori. Memori. I found that story really interesting and quite twist that I was like, didn't see coming, because when Murphy goes to get, the supplies and all of that, and I'm like, oh, he's stealing the food, great, that they need. But he doesn't know. And then he hears everyone, and then, the whole part where he steals the medication and gives it to Abby, I thought, oh, I kind of felt like, oh, he was vulnerable. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of had like that awe moment.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you find out that it was like all part of his
all
plot, which I'm like, oh, Murphy. I kind of respect that.
I kind of respect that too.
And then I'm kind of like, well, actually, that really goes with his, character. Totally. Because he's all about surviving.
Yeah.
This guy, we keep saying Murphy's going to be like the one that survives it all, because that's just who he is. He's a survivor.
And I think it's even more interesting because we all attributed motives to him that we didn't know. So we're like, oh, he did that because, as a kid also, his father did the same thing. So we're thinking...
Yeah.
But
he's like, no, really.
Really, he could. But here's the thing. For me, he was doing both. He was doing out of that sensitive, emotional side of things because he could relate to this moment. But also because he's like, let me calculate ahead of time. I'm going to need an in so that I have some usefulness in this coming apocalypse.
Yeah.
So so he could have played both sides, which makes him one of the ssmarter characters on the 100.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
I did wonder, though, if Abby was the best person to get to the right side of, because I feel like maybe Raven might be a better person to get on your side.
He also have to be realistic. There's only so many things he can do, right? So many places. He found it in that he was going to get at the time. He's like, I gotta give it up to the man. Like he looked at the situation and he read it right.
Yeah. And that sort of leads us to talk about who's on the list. So as it stands right now, there are only 100 people that can be on the list that can be saved, which I love that we're going back to the name of the show, right? The 100,
yeah.
Is it gonna be... Is that how the show will end? Only 100 people survive in the end?
And it's a reboot? It would be a massive reboot. Yeah, for sure.
It would be kind of poetic if it was like the 100. You bring down 100, juvenile on Earth, and then you have this whole story which leads to only 100 surviving in the end. From like
that
the
would
thing.
be dope.
That's really cool.
That would be so cool. Like, I'm not advocating for the end of the show, but if it ended with just 100 people left... That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be really good.
That would be amazing.
Really
like in the entire planet, that's all that's left. 100 people.
And then it's just as they open the door, and it's like kind of like you say, it starts all over again, and it ends like this. Oh! And I love how at first we started the season, we're like, oh, you have 6 months, and they're like, 6 months is quite a bit of time. Let's reduce this to 2 months.
Yeah.
And make you go like crazy. Like, what? We only have 2 months.
Yeah.
And that leads me to having a special appreciation for Raven in this episode, because Raven, I'm just like loving her so much this season, more than all the other seasons, at least in this episode.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I feel like she should be in charge in a way, or she's like, I guess in a way she should be the person that counsels or guides Clarke.
Yeah, for sure.
Because people will follow Clarke, but I feel like Raven right now is the only one who is trying to take the emotion out of it, and she's trying to be like, we need to save humanity.
Yeah.
And you need to make a list, and you need to figure out what we do when people realize that they're not all gonna be safe, because there's gonna be panic.
Yeah.
How do you deal with this?
Yeah.
Who can you trust to deal with this and prevent people from like clawing in to get into whatever they build, so that they don't mess up the things so that the people can survive. You know how like there's massive... I was just like,
sure.
Raven is...
Like, seriously, Raven is showing amazing leadership skills, right? And we were kind of expecting that Hershey would step up. And it's not even just because of the Ally 2.0 upgrade. I think she just had it in her, but now she's like, let's do it. Let's put it on. She's a better leader than Clarke today. But maybe that's even gonna bring some sort of level of conflict later on, because you're gonna start asking questions like, are we going Raven's way? Are we going Clarke's way?
Yeah.
Because those are two different...
I feel like Clarke knows. She just, she doesn't want to deal... I understand. Like, she's like, you have to do this. She's like, I don't want to do the list. But to be fair, I think this is why I don't think Raven would necessarily be the great leader, because I don't know if people would necessarily follow her.
Yes.
They would... Right.
Yeah.
But, she's a little bit too cold-blooded.
Yeah.
I think she's needed to push Clarke to do the right thing, but then Clarke will like soften it up for people to accept. And they're a great team, I think, in that way.
Yeah. But you know what really got me about this whole Raven, dealing with just all the drama and dealing with it, not just cold-bloodedly, but also with emotion, because at some point you just saw that she's affected by this. She's not being just cold-blooded. She's like deeply wounded by what she has to do.
And I think that's why I love her even more, because she's trying to push all of this down, because she knows that if she doesn't do it, nobody else will.
Nobody else will.
Like literally, if Raven wasn't doing this, we'd all die.
Yeah, I know.
Like she's saving people. She's saving humanity.
Lives.
Like humanity might go on because of Raven. Like, I don't know.
That's so Raven.
That's so Raven. And of course, that leads to the Bellarke moment.
Not
exactly a Bellarke moment. I mean,
No.
it is a moment where they're both like realizing how hard this is. But, I feel like they're really leaning on each other at this point, which I think, interestingly enough, the end of the world and trying to figure out who's going to survive, I think is bringing everybody closer, but especially, I think, Clarke and Bellamy, because it kind of goes back to season 1 when they kind of both stepped up as leaders. Clarke had her way, Bellamy has his way, and I think they really work well together because they balance each other out, and I think we haven't seen that in the past seasons, so it's nice to kind of see them working together again, which is why it's so nice when she writes Bellamy's name as like 99, and he's like, you know that if I'm on this list, like you have to be on this list.
But you know
and
what?
Then he writes her name
Yeah, but
down.
you know what would have been? Honestly, I would have respected Clarke more as a leader if she had put her name out of contention and Bellamy's name out of contention as like the symbolic thing, just to show we're not even going on this.
See, I think the reason why she would put Bellamy is, and that's why I'm like, I can see why she wouldn't do that, because I think, first of all, obviously she cares about him, but I think also she knows that he will be able to lead those 100 people once everybody else is gone. Like, you need someone to be able to take those 100 people and keep them on going.
I'm not debating that. I'm not even debating.
That's why I wouldn't respect her for not, because then I'm like, well, you're not
I'm just thinking about the goal, right? The goal is to be able to convince people that in the end, this is for their benefit, right? But
she can't put herself in there.
She can't put herself in there. And I get why she would put him in there. But
someone has to be there.
But I think it would be much more interesting if you had a situation where she's like, look, I'm not putting myself in there. I'm not putting him in there. But in the last moment, she pushes him in or something like that.
Well, but if it's only 100 people.
But then, it's like it was a trap all along. I was loving the stakes that were being raised in these episodes. Oh my God. The list. Who's on the list?
Yeah, by the way, who's on the list? Looking at the list, I think we took a screenshot trying to figure out.
None of the names.
I personally didn't recognize any name that I knew except for Brian. And it's funny because there were 2 Brians on there. One that was spelled like the Brian we know, and another one that was with an I. And I'm like, okay, so that's not Brian. The Brian we know is with an Y. So possibly he's on the list. But I don't know. Did anybody notice any names that we didn't see? Let us know in the comments.
Also, I'm curious about what does it take to get on the list, right? Like, what are we looking at, right? And so I would have enjoyed to sort of see some of the rationale behind it.
I think Abby has to be on the list because she's a doctor.
Yeah, so those kinds of things, right? Like, it's a doctor, you're an engineer, you're a farmer.
You probably have to be on the list.
Yeah, there's a lot of different.
Going to be able to save.
Exactly, right? So
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that you have to wonder. Now, being on the list, in my opinion, is going to be obviously a big question, but also a big debate, right? Like, who decides what happens, who gets in. So in my opinion, you might even have a situation where people say there should be a lottery, right? Where there's 50 people that gets decided because they're crucial, and the other 50 come in just through lottery. Right. So it's people are fighting.
The question is now, do you want to let people know that there are only 100 people? Because then again, you have panic, and people might stop working.
Oh yeah,
it's a whole thing.
This is very complicated.
That's what Raven's saying, you can't.
Someone has to come up with a plan.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, I want to talk about Luna and her people who have obviously been affected by radiation, as we suspected. Yeah. I thought for sure Luna was going to be a goner, but no. Nightblood has saved her.
Saved the
day. Which now you're so does that mean that there's possibly a cure or like a way to like save everyone using her blood? Will she let Abby use her blood to do it? Is there enough for everybody? Is it only going to be like 100 in the bunker and then like 50 outside that get like her blood or something? Like what's the...
Well, here's the thing. The blood can only save you from radiation.
Right.
It cannot save you from actually, radiation waves coming in and burning you up, which is a real possibility.
I don't know. We don't know.
No. Come on. It's not going to save you from acidic rain. Come on.
That's
no.
True. Okay,
no. Look.
Yeah,
all this can do is sort of like...
An additional layer of protection?
An additional layer of protection as you're sort of like struggling and working through surviving up until the last days, right? So whoever has that is going to be very valuable. And not just up until they get in, but also when they get out, because radiation stays, guys. It doesn't just go away. So people with that kind of ability to withstand it are going to be very crucial in the future. But what I really love about this whole Luna situation is that now you would think, well, she's cured, she doesn't have to stay there. But she came to Sky Crew for help. They tried to help by giving medicine, some of the few medicine that they have, to the little girl. While that didn't work, it showed that they were intent to helping her. And in a way, she owes them. Big time. So now, in my opinion, the thing is going to be bringing Luna to the flame.
Well, that was going to be my question. Will she take the flame?
She has to now.
I mean, and if she does, I mean, does she become the new commander? And then does that lead to her trying to help everyone, all the grounders? Or like, I feel like Luna, she's lost all her people. She's the only one left.
Yeah.
We know she can survive at least a little bit of radiation.
Better than most, yeah, for sure.
She now might be willing to take, the flame, because what else is she gonna do?
Yeah.
This is so good.
Oh, this is so good. This is so good.
But we'd love to hear what you thought of this episode. Are you excited about the possibilities of Luna taking the flame and what her blood might mean? Let us know in the comments.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the 100 videos. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Also, if you heard some banging throughout the review, we apologize. There's like some construction going on.
Curse you, banging, curse you!